Hi everybody, and welcome to our Community Brands WisePay webinar. I'm your host, Ria Jarvis, and I will be introducing Connie, who will be your speaker in a moment's time. As some of you may be aware, at Community Brands, we have a lot of experience working with our schools when it comes to online payments, as we currently have two payment platforms, School Money, which is aimed towards your primary schools, and WisePay, which a lot of you may already be using, which works nicely with a mix of primary, independent, and secondary schools. Today, Connie's going to have a chat with you about how WisePay can help you save time. So I'm going to pass you over now to Connie, who will be able to go through the webinar and hopefully save you a lot of time.
Thank you, Ria, for hosting today and warmly welcoming all of our attendees. And please let me know when you're next doing your webinar and I can return the favour. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. My name is Connie and I'm currently an account manager for WisePay, and I have been for around 4 years. I can see a lot of familiar names on the register. You'll be pleased that today I'm not doing a class roll call, so your presence is entirely voluntary and doesn't produce any kind of attendance record. I think we'll get a few more attendees. We've got a good number, but I think there'll be a few probably joining us as we go along. So hopefully everyone is comfortable. Let us get started. I'm going to begin today with a brief overview of what we will be covering. So the overarching theme of this session is how can WisePay save you time? Hopefully in this session, I will be able to provide you with some helpful answers to that question. Following on from there will be a discussion surrounding how time impacts us in our daily lives and relating those concepts to real life experience. Moving on to alternative perspectives of saving time with WisePay. Then demonstrating specific ways to save you and your colleagues time. And that includes banking reconciliation, processing refunds and transfers, centralised reporting, system shortcuts, and integrated communications. Ria will be monitoring the chat for questions which she will collate. I will answer in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If there is a number of questions that is going to take us over and above the time that we have, which is 45 minutes, we will ensure that every single question is answered and we will contact you via the email address that you've provided on registering. So, what is time to you? German philosopher Immanuel Kant wrote, "Time is not something objective and real. It is not a substance, not an accident, neither an attitude, but a subjective condition." Taking Kant's words, we can agree that time is elusive, something we never seem to have enough of, and we're often left wanting more of it. Lack of time is a challenge that I face alongside you all, and for that reason I can empathise with your plights. I have 2 secondary school-age children, a full-time job. I study part-time with the Open University. There are so many occasions that if there were gods of time, and I bear no allegiances to specific mythologies, it could be Saturn, Titan, Cronus, or Thoth, anyone would do really, I would be sacrificing what I could to get those extra hours in a day. This pandemic has propelled the effects of diminishing time and ever-increasing constraints, which have truly affected all who work within the education sector, from teachers to finance teams to cleaners. We have all had to pull out the stops and maintain that high level of functioning over a long period and continue to do so in the lead up to students returning to school on the 8th of March. Using time-saving techniques where we can is key for fiscal reasons, but more importantly, our own well-being. Is there ever a good time to save time? Sometimes it is just easier to work in the same ways we always have done, right? It's an established routine. We are familiar and comfortable with the daily tasks we are assigned or assign ourselves. There is so much uncertainty at the moment in all areas of our lives. Keeping some aspects the same, where we can help to maintain the sense of normality and control, it's not surprising that we're unsure how to best save time. What we often do not realise is that that is a false economy. Stepping outside of our comfort zone sometimes can have time-saving rewards. These rewards are needed more than ever at the moment. For example, each morning in my diary, I have a period I call Power Hour. This signifies to all others that I'm not available. What I do in this period is work on tasks that I've missed the day before, or the day before that, or the day before that, if I'm honest. Usually, due to time constraints. Or maybe new urgent priorities, which often appear in my inbox like moths to a flame, and I'm sure you're all right alongside me on this one. What I have found is not being pulled in as many directions really helps with my time saving and my overall effectiveness in my role. I'm not suggesting for a moment that you should all add a power hour to your diaries, but you can if you like. But merely I'm using this as a personal example overcoming the never a right time obstacle we all face by ring fencing time in my diary. Looking perhaps at old habits die hard by doing something different to what was yesterday. I appreciate that sometimes we're not able to say no, but perhaps by blocking that period in my diary that people cannot disturb me, I am saying no. We do not always need to know how we encourage change, but by joining me today, you have already taken the first steps of making the right time for you and saying yes. Yes to allowing me to help you save time. How can WisePay save you time? It's important to look at an alternative perspective. It's not necessarily the support aspects or what I'm about to demo soon to move on to that save you time. Utilising other WisePay benefits can assist with time efficiencies. Looking at your current WisePay packages, are you using all of your services? If you are not, is there a service that would help you eliminate time spent doing manual administration tasks? Did you know that by speaking to your account manager, we can review your services and in some cases swap services at no additional cost to your existing annual subscriptions? Accessing support, and please do, not at this present moment, but at some point, please do refer to your handouts, which are part of this webinar. There is some really helpful links on that handout that will signpost you and direct you to areas that can assist. If you have any trouble accessing that or you haven't received it for whatever reason, please feel free to email me directly and I will be more than happy to help. There are multiple areas where support can be obtained, and there is more resource material which will be appearing during the coming weeks and months. Please do keep an eye on your WisePay dashboards and the WisePay website. I will now move across to the WisePay demonstration, where I'm going to be showing you 5 ways to save you time. This will cover banking reconciliation, processing refunds and transfers, centralised reporting, system shortcuts, and integrated communications. So if I head into the banking area on screen, which is under your quick links, and we go into the banking options, I would like you to select the bank account statement by date range. Now, this area of WisePay is to assist you with your reconciliation. So for the monies that are settling in your bank account in batches, so in your physical bank statement, this area of WisePay relates directly to that. So you can see that there is a paid-in amount of £382. You would expect to see £382 batch within your bank account. If you click on the WisePay batch, it then breaks that down into cost centers throughout your WisePay system. And you can drill this information down further by clicking on either of these drop downs. And what that does is it shows you all of the payments that make up that subtotal, which then makes up this subtotal. Now, within this example, we only have one batch. You would expect batches to be coming through as frequently as you're receiving payments. You may have noticed within the pandemic that maybe there's less payments perhaps coming through the system, but I'm sure when schools go back on the 8th of March, you will really see an increase of those transactions going through the system. Not only does this area record paid in amounts, it also records paid out amounts. So if you were administering refunds, it would show similarly the batch of how much those refunds were for. You would click on the actual section here, then it would open up and tell you exactly what or who those refunds have been administered for. Another helpful tip within this area as well, if we just go back ever so slightly, what you're able to do within this area is create paying in slips. So although we are moving away from taking cash and checks, if you are needing to create a paying in slip you may not have known before, but you can do so on WisePay as well. If you do have any further questions in relation to this, then please do pop them in the chat. Ria is monitoring as I'm going along, and I'll be happy to answer those at the end. The next section that I am going to show you is relating to refunds and transfers. So I'm going to go into Income Manager and I'm going to select a specific bank account and generate a report. So you would access this in many ways. You could either do it through one of the services, which we'll touch on that a little bit later, or you can access this through the Income Manager as I've done. So with refunding and transfer, so refund is something that you complete a refund authorization form for. So it tends to be only nominated individuals who have access to refund capability. The function of refund is to be able to safely and securely refund online payments back to the card of origin. So taking Sharma Wright's payments as an example, you will see there is a tiny little icon. It's a refund icon that sits on the right-hand side of your transaction report. If you click on that, a secondary screen will appear. This screen gives you lots of different pieces of information, but also it allows you to refund any amount up to the total amount of that particular payment. Now, you would click here to continue, and then it gives you a secondary to authorize function button, just in case you think, oh no, I didn't want to make that refund. So it does give you that secondary check-in before the refund is completed. When you've pressed that button and the refund is completed, effectively what is happening is that payment is going back through the banking process. And as I touched upon slightly earlier, it will then go directly back either into the debit card or the credit card that that parent used for that particular trip. We also have a transfer function, which sits next to the refund. So this is typically used if you are wanting to, say, for example, move money between siblings' accounts. So let's give a scenario. It could be that elder sibling is leaving the school and there is £25 left on a catering account. You might want to transfer that amount to their younger sibling that's still at the school. So it allows you to keep the money within the school community rather than refunding money back. And also refunds going back through the banking process do cost money. So this way, if you have an option to transfer it to something else, you can either do it through siblings and you can also do it for cost center. So in this example, it's for a trip, and it might be that they're no longer going on that trip for whatever reason, but there might be another trip that's later on in the year, or it could be another product. It could be that they want to perhaps buy something out of a shop or pay for a locker key or pay for something else. But what you can do is transfer part payments and full payments from this cost center to another cost center. If it is relating to a trip where stock control is quite vital, you can opt to put the stock control back in the pot. So that means that if you've got an oversubscribed trip, somebody's not going on that trip, you can then give somebody else the opportunity to be able to go on that trip. The transfer area allows you to pop in notes, which can be viewed within the notes section. But ultimately, when you are carrying out that procedure, just click on the button and it does it for you. Any of the processes that I've shown you today in regard with the refund and transfer is all recorded within your reporting. So you will be able to see at the very top level, you can see that a refund has been administered here. So there's always a negative entry against the positive entry. Likewise, if you're transferring, there will be a negative entry against the original sibling cost or cost center, and then there would be a positive entry within the new sibling or the other cost center. So it's all fully reportable, and that's especially good for when you're being audited. To be able to move on to centralized reporting, and I will just go back into Income Manager. Now, you all will be aware that there is lots and lots and lots of reporting on WisePay. Now, we have helped you out a little bit by popping in the most frequently used reports. Now, it would be interesting if you think that there's not a report in there that you believe should be in there, then please do pop something in the chat as well. That's all recorded and we can take a look at that. But quite often, everything that you potentially would need would be within this section. Within the quick search, so this is if you're wanting to just check on what's coming in today, it's very overbridging, or what's happened within the last few days, you can just quickly access one of those reports. Dependent on whether or not you have any shop services with us, but we do also provide you with stock level reports as well, which you can access within here. And also a report which gives you top selling items, which I think is quite helpful when you're reviewing what you're selling and what you're not selling. One of the other reports, which is quite helpful, is within this section here. So this is a product installment report. So if you're not familiar with this, it is an installment payment status report. Now, when I look for the example, I will use a trip, and I know trips aren't quite as relevant at the moment, but it certainly does give us a nice view of the type of reporting that you can be utilising. This report can be accessed from everyone from a full administrator to a view-only account. Now, some of you might be familiar with view-only accounts, but it's quite helpful sometimes if you've got perhaps teachers or other people that are maybe running a trip that may need some access to some information on WisePay, but not all. And this is one of the reports that they get access to. And the reason why it's incredibly helpful is because it does give you, not in a demonstration world, but it would give you telephone numbers, mobile numbers, and email addresses. So if that person organising the trip is needing to contact a parent of a student to maybe chase them on payment or for another matter relating to the trip, they would be able to access this report very easily to be able to contact the parent, not needing to potentially even bother anybody within the, the finance team. It also gives you other pieces of information, which is quite helpful. It gives you a breakdown of what's been paid and how it's been paid. It also tells you if it's incomplete or if it's fully paid. One of the other things that it offers is functionality to withdraw. So if you want to withdraw a student from a trip, you can do by clicking on this button here. What that does is it pops a place back into the pot again for somebody else to be able to book on that trip. Or, I mean, it could be in another context. This is really a report that is used for installment payment products. So although we're using it in context of a trip at the moment, if you had other installment payments, you could have laptop programs running at the moment, for example, the same report would be available to you, and obviously the view onlys as well. One of the other nice things that this report gives you also is a shortcut. Now, although we will be discussing shortcuts, it's just one for you to remember. So once you have all of the information, so it could be the deposit taking, say, for example, and you have all the individuals that are purchasing, dependent on stock control, or maybe you've got a cut-off date that you need to know by. But once you have that information, you can create a group. So this is automatically creating an audience group for this particular product. What that helps you do is when you go back into the product, instead of it being available for, say, 100 students or a year group or whatever it is, you can really close the net and then apply just who has actually paid the deposit. And what that does, there's two things. The first thing is that when parents are logging in, they're only ever seeing what is relevant to them. They're not seeing things that they couldn't get a space on or something that they don't want to buy. They're only seeing what's relevant. Another benefit to this by using this function is in the communications hub. So if you are ring fencing those individuals, it means that if you are using the WisePay communications hub, you are only communicating to those individuals so that you're not sending spam emails to parents that just don't need to be hearing about something that they've never paid money to attend or purchase. So that's one of the helpful reports that I find. And if we just go back to the main area. So one of the other helpful reports as well, and I always go into the wrong section, is a product summary report. So what this is for is when you're wanting to produce a report and you might want to be seeing data, so observing data of, say, for example, cost centers. Now, I do appreciate there's no data in here at the moment, but what I want to show you is still relevant. So you would have all the information in a report, much like you've seen previously. But what it allows you to do is you can drill down and produce another report. So if you are using ledger codes and cost centers and department IDs, you are able to then click on that and it will produce a report of that activity within that cost center or that ledger code, on top of obviously the information that you're seeing across different products. So this is a kind of very top level analysis of activity that's going on across all areas of your WisePay. And I do find that quite a helpful report as well. If you were wanting to, say, for example, I'll just have to go into payment methods, I think. While I'm in here, also, if you're not aware, there is a refund report. So this does tie back to our original screens when we were looking at banking, but there is a refund report in there that you can cross-check if you want to, but that's quite a helpful report that you can use as well. This was the area that I was coming to. So as well as the summary reports, when it comes to categories or products, ledger codes, cost centers, department IDs, you can all report on these specifically. So you've got that one end of the scale to the other end. Do you want to just do one action and look at one area, or do you want to summarize across more than one areas of the system? So those are definitely a couple of reports that I think that are incredibly helpful, and hopefully you do too. And I think just to utilize the frequently used area and the quick search area, and also with these product installment and payment reports, please remember that if you do have any sort of staff within the organization, within the school, that are potentially needing to see some reporting but not finance information, number 40, number 50, and number 64 are the reports that they get access to. Again, if you have any questions on the centralised reporting, then please do let me know. Just to move on to the shortcuts. So with the shortcuts, I did show you one a moment ago through the product installment payment report, but also within Payment Manager. So Payment Manager is the overall area where you can go to be able to make manual payments. But there also is within each of the services, if we go in here, you can see that you have shortcuts. So this shortcut is to Manual Payment Manager for this particular product. This is a shortcut to specific transactions for this particular product. Also as well, we have View All Transactions. So View All Transactions up here will just take you to an overall report for the actual service that you're in. Bulk publishing function. Now, this is something that some of you may have and some of you may not have. If you don't have it, please let us know. Pop something in the chat box, we can review it later and we can get this added for you free of charge off the back of today's webinar. Also as well, if you would feel that a search box would be beneficial within your trips, and I understand that trips is not a biggie at the moment, but if you are a school that usually, once things get back to normal, do quite a lot of trips, if you want this search box added, we can also do that for you as well. And this can also be seen within the shop manager. So if you've got the shop manager or the uniform shop manager and you haven't got this feature, let us know. We can get that organised for you as well for no additional charge for your school. There is another area where you can find a shortcut, and this is within Forms Manager. So Forms Manager, similarly to the report that I've just shown you with the nice bright colours on, when you look, so if you are converting forms, paper forms to online forms, you're associating them to products, and when you view what is going on, it'd be helpful. There we go. We'll get one. There's some data. Right. So in here is how the information is collated and presented. So you have global search function, pagination. You can export it to Excel, much like all of our reporting within Income Manager. But the shortcut is similar that to the report that you've seen before. So off the back of you obtaining information, you can create an audience group as a shortcut from your forms to be able to then associate those audience groups to products that you have already created or are potentially creating. If I just go back to the dashboard. So if you have any questions on that for me, then again, just please pop them in the chat. My wonderful assistant, Ria, I'm sure is doing a fantastic job there. I think lastly, just before we move on and summarize, and then we can move on to the Q&A session, is just discussing the communications hub. So the communications hub is integrated, so fully integrated in with your services. Now, what that means is that when you produce some of these reports, for instance, the low balances for cashless catering, or you're wanting to chase an installment, so you can actually debt chase. So if somebody has not paid an installment, you can pull up a report and you will be able to communicate only to those who have not paid that particular installment. So when we talk integrated, it's semi-automated. There is things already done for you in the background. You can link. So here, although I think sometimes we just don't see it, it's kind of, I think we have sometimes, blindness to things that are there. And I know that just to kind of overview this is worthwhile. So if you're wanting to add a link, you would just follow this key here. Quite simply, bold text, underline it, so on and so forth. You can pop your header titles in there, but also as well, you can time save by doing default message content. So for each of the sections, so you might have something generic that when you're asking them to pay, you might want to say it in a particular way. And how you would do that is just by adding on the templates what you're wanting to say. So that can be a copy and paste exercise, or you can obviously type it out if you want to. Once that's been done, whether you're in email or you're in text messaging, when you go into the report, it will show up what your default information is. Now, if we just go through a very quick example, and we'll go on to the next screens. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? Let's try. If it does it again, we will have, there we go. All right, let's try a trip. Okay, we'll bypass that for the time being. It's very helpful when you're on a webinar doing a demonstration and things don't quite work how you want them to. But ultimately, once you get through to the section within the communications hub, you do have the option to communicate to contact 1 and contact 2. So you can make that a choice. Quite often what we find is some of the questions that we get asked is if the email addresses are orange in color. What that means is you need to opt in. They're new accounts, they're new to the system. And that opt in new accounts button up here on the top left is really, really helpful. So I think really the things that I've tried to show you today are just potentially areas that you may have known some of what I've shown you, but hopefully you have learned something new today. And I think just to summarize this webinar before we get on to the Q&A, I think we give you the consultancy, and if you feel that you do need a meeting with your account manager beyond this webinar, then we're quite happy to have that meeting. So it's the free consultancy. We need to ensure we're establishing your needs, and we do that by listening to you and understanding your perspectives. WisePay is a very modular system. It's very, very versatile. So what we can do, touching back on what I was saying before, is that if something is not working for you or you no longer use it, let's look at that. Let's get something swapped out. Let's get the services in there that are going to serve you best. We continually support you, so through the account management teams and the support, and also accessing the resources which we're adding to. So there will be lots more. So again, please keep an eye on the websites and your dashboard for new resources being made available. And I think hopefully through that cycle, we are saving you time. And I do welcome any feedback. So if there is any feedback beyond this webinar that you want to share with me, then please feel free. I think you all should have my email address. So please do contact me directly. So I think that now leads on to our Q&A session. So I am just going to have a little look at what has been added. Right, okay. Right, okay. Right, so we've got here, is there a report to show when someone starts crediting their catering account? For example, students credit their accounts at different times, a report showing dates they start. I will look into that. I know that we have a report within the one of the sections which shows you who hasn't accessed their account. But perhaps what I'll do on that one is I will go away and I will come back and I will answer that beyond this webinar if that's okay. Can you just let me know? Is it? I'll just double check with Ria. But do you have obviously the names of individuals within the chat that?
If the lady who asked that question wants to pop her email address in the chat,
Yep.
then I will receive that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've also had, we've also had a couple of other schools asking about having the publish button switched on. If those schools that have asked for that, if you could also pop your email addresses or school name into the chat, then we'll be able to sort that out for you afterwards as well. Thank you.
Just looking here, Anesta wants email of the recording. That's absolutely fine. We can share that with you. That's not a problem. And I can see there Mandy and Sarah. That's fine. We can get those features sorted for you. And also as well, Elizabeth from Folkestone School. That's not a problem at all. Let's get that arranged. Another question here. Actually, I didn't mention that when I was in the banking area. So within the banking area when we were in before, it's just been asked, can it link back to the reporting area? So when you're in the banking area where we first went into, when you drill down more granularly and you get to those payments areas, you can actually click on the payment reference, and that payment reference does take you to an income report, and that income report will obviously give you a slightly different formatted view, but it will also provide you with the relative batch numbers, which is quite helpful sometimes within that process. Okay, I've got one here. Can you transfer between bank accounts? So if you have different bank accounts on WisePay, so some schools have the same bank account across everything. Others may potentially have a caterer's bank account for their cashless catering, and then maybe a general and school fund account. But ultimately, you cannot transfer across bank accounts. You would need to, in those instances, you would need to administer a refund and then ask the parent to then make the payment to the specific bank account. So if it was, say, for a trip, they would need to refund the trip and then hop back on again and then make the payment on cashless catering. I've got one on reporting here. Is there a report for voucher payments? Yes, there is. So when we went into payment methods, I maybe just scanned over it too quickly, but there is a report that you can look at payment methods, so manual payment methods. So whether you're looking for a report on voucher or bursary, subsidy or consent, you are able, and they have date ranges as well, so you're able to do the filters for date ranges. So yes, you can. Just looking through, there's a few others that are asking for additional function. I'm just having a look down. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I've just seen as well that one of the schools that I'm familiar with would like a review of the services. So that's absolutely fine. I can contact you beyond this webinar. Just having a look. I think that's it really. We've got quite a lot that are wanting some features and functions, so that's good news. We can get you set up with that, and you can bulk publish away. With the bulk publish, when you click into it, it gives you the ability, I didn't cover this at the time, but it gives you the ability that when you're doing lots of products, you can just select them all and publish them all at the same time. And likewise, if you want to bring loads of things out of publish, you can go into there and do that. And also then archive, or if you want to bring out of archive. So it just allows you to maneuver products en masse around the system. And that definitely does save time. Again, with the global search function that we have within Trips and the shop, as you can see, you would just enter in a word and it just takes you there so much quicker. So again, it's just all these little time-saving things that could just mean a saving of 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there. But when you mount those all up, you know, it's that kind of analogy, take care of the pennies, the pounds take care of themselves. And I think it's the same with time. It might only be seconds, but seconds do count. I think that's all we've got for the Q&A. I would like to thank you for joining us today, and I hope that there has been something that you've taken from this that can save you time. And I look forward to speaking to those who have asked for meetings or additional functions. I can get that arranged for you. So yeah, it just leaves Ria and I to say thank you very much for your time today. We know how precious it is. Thank you.